Hey everyone, Justice Good here, back with another Tutorial Tuesday, and in today's episode I'm going to show you how you can cut an object out of your photo in Photoshop using the pen tool. So there's lots of different ways to cut things out and make selections in Photoshop, but this method should work for 9 out of 10 cases. So first you want to click on your pen tool with your layer selected, and we're going to cut this woman out of the photo so we can use it how we like. So you can start anywhere you like. Usually I just pick a point that's easy to connect back to. So I can start a little bit off the canvas here, and then I can click and set a point. Now how the pen tool works is when I go to click and make my next point, if I click and drag, I can make curves. So this is why it's better than something like the polygonal lasso tool, because I can follow the curves of a natural object more closely. So also if you hit edit undo, you can undo the last anchor point. So what I like to do is usually just keep my hands on the Command Z shortcut, which is the shortcut for undo, and then you just want to work your way up. So just click your way up. Usually the closer your points are together, the more accurate you can get it. But for something like an arm here, you can kind of get away with clicking and dragging over long distances. For example, I can kind of take care of that whole shoulder area. Now you see it kind of cut her shoulder off. So I'm going to go to Command Z. But anyways, you want to just keep going upwards, taking care for the curves. Now once I set this curve of this shoulder, you see when I go to make the next point, it automatically kind of follows that last curve. So I'm going to undo that, edit, undo. How you can stop that from happening is actually hold the Command tool on a Mac, click on this anchor point, hold the Option or Alt tool, click on the last anchor point, and you can adjust it and set it back on track. So I can set it back on track and then create my next point. That's a very useful tip because whenever you create a curve and you don't want your next point to be all curved, you just hold the Option tool and point it in the direction of your next point. So now when it comes to the hair, this is a problem area that a lot of people have trouble with. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And for the hair, you just want to follow it as closely as possible without losing any of the major points of the hair. So see, I'm clicking and curving. I'm holding the Alt or Option key on a Mac, pointing the last anchor back in the direction of where I'm going to be going next, and then continuing on. Again, you can do that before you even let go of the anchor or let go of the mouse. I hope this doesn't sound too confusing, but when you're working in Photoshop, you'll be able to see what I mean. The pen tool can be a little bit tricky to get used to at first, to kind of get used to how it works. But once you have it down, it's a very powerful tool. See, I'm holding the Option key, pulling it back in direction. That's probably the most useful tip you can gain when using the pen tool. And just remember, just work zoomed in and take your time. It can be a little bit time consuming if you want to get it perfect. But I'm just going to keep chugging along because afterwards we're going to refine our selection. So all those points that aren't exactly perfect, we can make them smoother in Photoshop. Don't be afraid to undo your point and redo it. yeah, it's much easier to work zoomed in. So you see this section of her arm is pretty much a straight line. That's where it gets easier. When you're cutting out people, it can be kind of hard with hair and objects like that, or in cases where the background is really complicated. But then you have things like if you're cutting out like a basketball or something, it's pretty easy. Alright, so I'm almost finished up here. Feel free to have fast forwarded through this. I'm gonna leave it unedited for anyone who wants to learn. But once you are ready to connect the 2 points, you just click, and now you have your shape. And don't worry about areas like this in between the arm. We'll go over that afterwards. Let's see, actually. Okay, so actually if you click Path Operations and you click Subtract Front Shape, you can go ahead and take care of these areas, like in between the arm, and it'll subtract the shape. Alright, so again, you have your combine shapes or subtract shapes. So if you wanted to, let's say, select a bunch of bubbles or something, or if I wanted to select something outside of her as well all at once, I just have to click combine shapes, and then I can make a new selection outside of her as well. But we have everything selected. Now you want to right click and select make selection. So leave everything at 0, and now you have your selection of the woman. But you see the only problem we have here is that the hair is not refined like we like, because there's no real way to do that with the pen tool unless you made 100 different little subtractions. But one thing you can do is go to select refine edge. Now, this is a really useful tool in Photoshop that lets you refine a selection. So here you can play around with the edge settings. We're going to leave it kind of as is. We can do it maybe a little bit softer, smooth the edges a little bit. But how we can get rid of some of that hair is clicking the refine radius tool. Change your brush size to something that works for your object. And then if you just click and paint on those areas you want to refine, Photoshop will automatically kind of detect what you want to do. So you see all that little background by the hair just got removed very easily. And even if, let's say I accidentally chopped off some of the shoulder, I can even go back over the shoulder, and Photoshop will, as long as the background is pretty clean, like in this object, Photoshop will kind of detect what you're trying to do and fix it for you. So also you can view it against white or black just so you can see better. But once you're happy with your selection, which I think this looks pretty good, if you select OK, now you have your selection, and I can do something like I can click on my rectangular marquee tool. I can right click, layer via copy, and now I have the object I wanted to cut out on its own layer, and I can do anything with it. I can put it on a new background or like a solid color. I can turn this into some kind of poster or a wallpaper or whatever you want to do with it. So that is a really useful tool in Photoshop. There's so many times when you're going to need to cut something out, and using this method will take care of 9 out of 10 of those cases, taking into consideration the background and things like that will make it easier or harder. But from this point on, you can actually refine it as much as you like. The more time you take on the selection and the more comfortable you get with the pen tool, the better your selection will be. But that's all for this tutorial. Thank you for watching. Hopefully it wasn't too drawn out and you got some useful information out of it. But I'd really appreciate if you hit the thumbs up button, share this video if you liked it, and leave me a comment if you appreciated it. If you have any questions, leave me a comment. I'll try to answer them. And subscribe for more tutorials every week. Alright, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.